welcome back. Maybe we can go ahead and move along, but guys, let's try to work something up where we can have either a brainstorming session or a planning session. Let's connect again on these topics because I think they are necessary, and I'd love to see some traction on it. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Dr. Datema and walk us through, sir, what you have.
Yeah, thanks very much, Nikki. And I have a PowerPoint with some slides, so perhaps we could share the screen. You will have the benefit of seeing my notes as well because I only have one screen. So if I had three or something, it would be different, but that's fine. You can follow along with me as well. So is it possible for me to share?
I think if you just go to the bottom, Bill, and click that share screen.
Share screen?
I think
okay.
We've got you set up as a presenter.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Very good. Okay, so I'm going to enlarge that so that you guys can see the slides. And you may be able to see yourselves too. I don't know. But it's a great pleasure to be here again. And I do want to share some leadership thoughts, but honestly, we're going to do this together. There'll be a lot of discussion during the session, and everyone here is a good leader. We can all learn from each other. So I want to make sure that we have the opportunity to do that. But it's a great joy to be with all of you, and thank you for making the time to do this so that we can all become better leaders together. I mentioned before the keynote some of my background in PTA. At this point, I'll pause just to give you some of my background just generally because it's probably pretty relevant to a leadership workshop. So I mentioned PTA basically launched my career in education and public health through a scholarship, to go to college at Missouri State University. And then when I was on the national board as a youth member, there were 3 commissions at the time. The board was very different. It was all the state presidents and then a number of at-large members. And those 3 commissions were education, administration, and health and welfare. So education, there weren't all the committees that we have now. It was just those 3 commissions. So education was the commission I wanted to be on, but of course I was a new member, and so got bumped out for seniority. So I couldn't be on the education commission. Administration to me sounded deadly boring. Like I just could not imagine, doing that as a 17-year-old. Though of course then I spent the entire rest of my career doing that. But anyway, at that time it sounded boring, so I didn't want to do that. So I did health and welfare, and so glad I did because it ignited an interest in public health work and in tying that to education, so that when I came out as a school teacher, I taught health and PE, and I also taught social sciences. But then in rural Missouri, middle school and high school, I was a community health director right at the beginning of the HIV epidemic in Southwest Missouri, and worked with whistle precautions and also do help blood donors understand that you couldn't get, HIV from donating blood, etc. So I just became a person at the Missouri Education doing health work. So I was in Jefferson City at the state capitol at the state agency. After that, I worked in Denver at a training center that was called Health Education, and we worked with related to health and all with school districts, all of it. And we worked with 38 of the state departments of education. Then I went to Washington, D.C. and was the executive director of the Society of State Leaders of Health and Education. And for all the folks that were in Missouri that did health work within the state education agency. After that, I went to Harvard to the School of Public Health, and I was managing a program called Partnerships for Children's Health, which focused on policy and practice. And a lot of the policy work we did was we focused a lot on nutrition and physical activity, on violence, on mental health, etc. And it was, fascinating work. And then finally, the job that I did for the last 13 years of my career is managing the programs side of the Division of Adolescent and School Health at the Centers for Disease Communication Agencies, about half of the state health departments, all of the territorial education agencies, over a 13-year period, over 40 of the 50 largest school districts in the country, and as many as 60 national non-governmental organizations. So all of that came out of PTA. Have been leadership positions that have been kind of progressively responsible. So I'll be happy to share, my leadership perspectives, but all of you have, as I mentioned earlier, have your own experiences and are really good leaders and know how to do a lot of this. But I'll give you some frameworks and some pieces of information that might be helpful for you as you consider your own leadership style and how you can improve it. So today we'll identify characteristics of great leaders. We'll define 3 leadership styles that are used in different situations. People tend to have one style that they like to focus from normally, but really good leaders know when to shift styles. So all of us, need to work on, regardless of how good we are, on our skills of transitioning between styles. We'll explore traits of great PTA leaders, and we'll do some self-reflection on ways to improve our leadership tendencies ourselves. So we can't really do the exercise the way that it's designed because we're not in the same space. So we'll not do this exercise the way it's designed, but we don't have that. We have a small enough group that it would be easy to just go through each person. And if you could just share a little bit about your PTA leadership experience, like at national, state, local level, and just a sentence on what you think a good leader is. So who would like to go first? We'll just go around to everybody.
I think a good leader is one who's accessible when you have questions.
Very good. And what type of, do you work local, state, or national?
Local and state.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you.
I think a good leader empowers others to participate and take on their own leadership roles, whether informal or formal.
Excellent. Yep. And what role do you play?
I'm currently a chair at an elementary PTA.
Okay, great.
And my answer was going to be similar. I was going to say collaborative because there's more success in we than I. And when everybody's at the table, everybody has great ideas. We all work together. That's worked well. I started at the elementary level. I went to the city level and am now at the state level.
Very good. Thanks, Nikki.
To add to that, I would say that a good leader will also not only take time to listen, but they'll help guide the group and help them make decisions and be able to take action instead of just discuss. And
Great.
I'm both local and state.
Great. Thank you, Kristen.
Yeah, this is Cheryl. I was trying to come up with my one sentence to get it all in there. I don't know if I did it, but I would agree. Listen, shares the vision, and encourages others to take action as well.
Great. And what levels do you work at, Cheryl?
Currently at state level. I have done the local and city as well.
Excellent. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Feel a good leader is an effective communicator that is consistent and builds positive relationships.
Okay, great, Heather. Thanks. Others?
I'm on the local PTA and also on national PTA as an educator. I think a lot of things has been said, listening and collaborative, but I think the teamwork is important to be focused on our mission and goals so that we are fully informed about what our role is so that we can do a good job. Because if you're not properly trained and educated, you really could not work as a team.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
So I've been in a number of different roles within an elementary PTA and most recently joined state PTA last year, so relatively new chair. Much like Cheryl and others, it's hard to put it into one sentence, but if I were to maybe build on everyone else's ideas, for me, a good leader is someone who creates and shares through painting the vision of a better future for the group and brings everyone together to kind of pursue that shared goal.
Great. Thank you, Jeff. We have a few final folks.
I feel like since I'm a little late here to the party at the end, I think everybody's really about covered it. I think if I added anything, it would just be, again, a combination for me. I think communication and follow through is probably the two biggest things for me.
Great. Thanks, Danny. What levels do you work at?
I am part of, I'm currently the office director at the state. So, but obviously I have an 18 or a senior and a freshman. So been involved at the different local levels as well for quite a few years.
Excellent. Thanks.
Thanks, guys, for all those good ideas. There's not much more to say.
Great. Thanks, Mary. What levels do you work at?
I'm at the state level now.
Okay. Very good. Anyone remaining?
Yep, I'm at the state level, and I agree. Most of them have been taken, but communication, having the support, and collaborating.
Very good. Thanks, Lisa. Okay, is that everyone? Okay, we'll move forward then. Thanks so much for your observations and reflections there. Those are all excellent. And I think through the rest of the presentation, you're going to see various times where those connect. And this particular diagram shows kind of how the different pieces of PTA work together the members, the local leaders, the district council and region leaders, the state leaders, and the national leaders, and some characteristics that are important for each of those levels in working together across the levels, being welcoming, communicating well, supporting each other, advocating across levels, sharing power, and collaborating. And a number of those aspects are things that each of you brought forward when you were sharing your thoughts about leadership. So great leaders inspire others to take action, flex their style to match a situation, and transform potential into reality. Let's talk about those styles for a minute. And this is adapted from some academic research on leadership that shows that the research actually had 6 levels, but those 6 are collapsed into 3 for purposes of simplicity and in each case of the 6, kind of 2 go together, 2 go together, and 2 go together. So it makes sense to collapse it in this way. So leadership styles, authoritative. We probably all dealt with authoritative leaders who are very directive. They tell others what to do. They make their own decisions typically and may not consult with others. The style that's just below that, before democratic, is consultative in the research, and an authoritative leader who is consultative has at least a small group of advisors that they talk with, but they still make the decision based on their own, just their own thinking. So authoritative and consultative styles are very much focused around one person and one person making the decisions. Teamwork is really limited, discussion's really limited. In consultative, they may have a little more discussion, but the leader may not take that into account. So it's pretty straightforward and pretty single person focused. Democratic leaders are much more about seeking input and getting teamwork in planning and decision making. Democratic leaders will often delegate across leaders to give people various roles and give them opportunities for input. They're the kind of folks that will put out polls or do various data gathering methods to try to understand the wishes of either the members or the constituents, whatever the constituents are. They're folks that thrive on the input and think that having the input is super important in setting direction. They're also not as tied up in making the decisions themselves. They're very open to input, and they're very open to sharing power as needed to get the right result. Then hands-off leaders, they, as it says, offer little direction or guidance. They provide their opinion only when asked, and they defer to others all the time. They're basically facilitators. They may not step up and direct the group at all, but they seek to try to get group consensus all the time and get the group to actually be making the decisions. So you can see strengths and weaknesses in each of these 3 styles, but a good leader often has kind of a default style that they like, that they go to, but they know when to shift gears, and they know when to step forward, and they know when to step back, and they know when to let the group be much more involved, but they also know how to drive a group toward decision making so that the group doesn't just get stuck in kind of going in circles. They can facilitate in such a way that they can help the group move toward an action of one type or another. So again, because of the virtual nature of the workshop, it's difficult to do this so that everybody is involved. But what I would like to try, if we have 3 folks that would like to participate, is we could do a brief role play for a couple of minutes, and we'll have somebody be the health and safety chair, somebody be a PTA president, local level, and somebody be a school nurse. And then those folks can come together on trying to plan a family health day. So do we have 3 people who would be willing to spend 2 minutes in a brief discussion where you role play trying to plan a family health day?
I would be willing. I'll take the school nurse role.
All right. Thanks, Nikki.
Sure.
We have 2 others. If you jump in next, you get to pick your role.
I'll help role play.
Okay. And what role would you like?
I'm not that particular.
Okay. I didn't see who it was that spoke up.
Kristen.
Thanks, Kristen. Appreciate it. So one more person.
This is Lynn Telford, and I can do it, but my camera won't be on.
That's okay. You don't need your camera on, Lynn. That's okay.
I'm on my phone.
That's really all right. So Lynn, Kristen, and Nikki. Nikki said she would be the school nurse. So Lynn, what would you like to do? Health and safety chair or PTA president?
I'll do health and safety chair. I'm a nurse, so that feels like it fits a little bit better with my.
All right. So Kristen is our PTA president. So Kristen has pulled Nikki and Lynn together to help plan a family health day. And they're going to do or at least start that in the next couple of minutes. So Kristen, take it away.
Okay. Nikki and Lynn, did you guys have ideas on what you wanted to put together for our family health day?
Just as a note, maybe Lynn and I should have traded spots. I thought if I took school nurse, others would step up. If she's actually a nurse, she'd be better at this. But, well, Kristen, I could offer up some ideas. Depending on how you'd like to do this event, are you thinking in person? Are you thinking virtually? Or what do you think you'd like to do?
Lynn, do you have any ideas since you're the chair?
Well, I think that if we could do in person safely with current circumstances, we could abide by local health guidelines and do something in person. Otherwise, we could certainly attempt to do virtual. I'm also wondering if the school has any particular health and safety priorities that they'd like to focus on for this event.
Okay, those sound like good ideas. Nikki, as the school nurse, do you have any ideas?
Well, maybe we could talk about the importance of social distancing. How about covering nose and mouth, either with masks or if you're sneezing, maybe into elbows and that type of thing. Knowing that you want to have it in person, I can have different types of resources available to help support the topics that we ultimately land on.
I think another fun idea would be teaching kids how to appropriately and effectively wash their hands. And we could bring in, there are tools you can bring in, like a black light where you have them rub this certain thing on their hands, and then they wash their hands, and then they can put their hand under the black light to see what germs still exist on their hands. That's a really fun way to get kids to understand how important it is to be to really scrub their hands well and do it for the recommended amount of time. So that would be a fun station we could have at the event.
Oh yeah, that sounds good too. Both of the ideas sound good. What were you guys thinking for a timeline? For an hour, half an hour?
I think a half an hour might prove fairly effective. I think any longer they might get bored or start to wander mentally. But if we had a couple of stations, I like that Lynn mentioned that. We have a black light in the office here, so that would be easy enough to do. And another station or two would be great. Maybe we could, I've seen videos of how and why the masks are effective and the amount of, say, droplets that come out. There's a fascinating video with different types of masks. Maybe we could make that a quick station. It goes through it really quick. So it'd just be a couple, 2-3 minutes. Then perhaps we could set up another station. I like the idea of hands-on. I think families will get more out of that.
Yeah. And I guess I'm looking at it and I want to expand it out further. I know we're thinking COVID, but let's think further, more health.
Yeah, I was going to say people are sick of focusing on just COVID. So I think that the social distancing and the sneezing examples and hand hygiene are really important for us to focus on now. So I think that those would be great stations. And I think we could have stations on physical activity, different ways to get physical activity, what's recommended, and how to accomplish that. And then also healthy eating, how to pick healthy snacks, even teaching kids how to compare, what nutritional value is in maybe if they were going to choose between Cheetos and an apple, right? Teaching them the nutritional values.
I thought about the eating aspect too. I just wasn't sure that would go over great with a group of kids, but if we do it that way, that could be fun.
Okay, let me jump in now. You all did a great job. Thank you very much, Kristen and Lynn and Nikki, for volunteering. You did a terrific job. So if everybody could virtually clap for all three, that would be highly appreciated. You can use the emojis or whatever works for you. But we appreciate all three of you for jumping in. Okay, let's think a bit about all three leaders and what styles they used. What did you see Kristen using?
Hands off.
Okay, there were times when she was hands off. What else did you see?
Democratic.
Yeah, certainly she exercised some democratic leadership in asking for the others' opinions and kind of guiding the discussion toward some results. Yoksem, do you have your hand up? Okay, perhaps not. So what other styles did you, or what, can you give me an example of what Nikki or Lynn used?
It's okay, guys. Go ahead and answer.
Yeah.
I thought Lynn was using a combination of authoritative and democratic, but mostly authoritative, maybe, and just kind of saying this is what she was looking to do.
Okay, good. Yeah. And very appropriately, I might add.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Next.
I think with Nikki, she was a little bit of hands off and democratic.
Mm-hmm. Okay, good. Okay, good. And you can see how these styles need to blend in order to move toward a good decision and a good plan. Let's think for a minute about some behaviors that might have been less facilitative. All three folks here were working really well together, but let's think about think about your own experiences in trying to plan things, and what types of behaviors did you think were less facilitative and less helpful?
I can speak to authoritative. I thought what Lynn did was very good because it helped move our ball forward. So I thought, as you said, a very appropriate use. Inappropriate use of authoritative, we have seen, and that's where someone has an idea and that's all that they're interested in moving forth with. And they've already made their decisions, they made up their mind, and they're basically telling people that this is where we're headed and I expect you to support this decision.
Yeah, good, Nikki. Thanks.
I think at first when Kristen started asking for input, it was almost like, okay, people, would you just decide? You know, like, do your job, step up, people, come on. You know. But, you know, and then she got there. Well, and then, you know, my thought too, let's make it larger, you know, let them talk first and then give her opinion, right? Versus
yeah, sure.
Telling her opinion first.
Yeah, all three were very appropriate in how they expressed their leadership. But all of us have plenty of examples of times when folks didn't do that well.
I think as in group projects and stuff, excuse me, I struggle personally more with the hands-off leader. Sometimes I prefer just, you know, especially when there's a whole group of people trying to work things out, then there's almost too much back and forth conversation, and then you kind of leave without anything really planned or resolved. And so I think there's a time and a place to be hands-off, but when we really have to like rope some things in and get some things going and not be talking about the same thing we were talking about for the last 3 meetings or so, that's where we have to kind of figure out how to lead differently.
Yeah, good, Heather. That's very true. And it makes me think of something that drives me a little nuts, which is I'm a very social person and I love talking with other people and I love hearing about what they're doing. But when we've all been in meetings where it devolved into nothing but kind of a social discussion about, you know, things that were completely off topic and didn't get the business done. And I'm a little chop when it comes to getting the business done. I also like very much the social aspect, but when we're in the meeting, I want to go through the items and make sure that we've made our decisions, and then we can talk all we want. Let's get one final example of a time when you didn't see this go necessarily as well.
On a humorous note, you could see the Board of Health member and the school board member focusing on COVID. So I appreciate the reminder to focus on something else by Kristen.
Yeah, that was a good, appropriate use of authoritative guidance, I'll say. So good. Okay, good examples, and thanks to our role players. So now let's spend a few minutes on servant leadership, and which is a term I'm sure everyone's heard before, but let's talk just a little bit about what it looks like PTA-wise. Servant leaders think being servants first. As Greenleaf says, it begins with the natural feeling that one wants to serve, as opposed to wanting power, influence, fame, or wealth. It's a very different mindset. We all know leaders who have been a little drunk on the power, and we all know leaders who've been a little too focused on making sure that their influence was the most important influence in whatever decisions are being made. We all know leaders that love the spotlight, and we all know leaders who are focused only on money. And in PTA, we focus on servant leadership because there's nothing wrong with being motivated some by a little power, influence, fame, or wealth, but it rapidly can deteriorate in terms of your own effectiveness as a leader if you go too far in any of those directions. So these are some of the core leadership traits of servant leaders. Being a person of character, which means committing to self-awareness, maintaining their integrity, demonstrating humility, and serving a higher purpose. A leader who puts people first, who displays what's in their heart, who mentors others, who coaches rather than trying to control, and who shows care and concern. A skilled communicator who demonstrates empathy, listens intently, invites feedback, and communicates persuasively and regularly. And finally, a compassionate collaborator, someone who expresses appreciation, who builds teams and communities, who negotiates conflict, who unleashes the energy and intellect of others. So you can see in each of these cases, it's a much more outward focus. It's thinking about trying to help other people shine and making sure that their talents and abilities are put forward as opposed to the leader's talents and abilities. So, at any point, if you want to take a picture of these slides, that's perfectly fine. Be happy to share this presentation with Nikki too, if folks want to get the content. But I think these pillars are really helpful in helping to understand what a servant leader actually looks like. One really important aspect of being a servant leader is self-reflection. And everyone has their strengths. Everyone has opportunities to grow. Everyone has things that they need to stop or start. And we have the 4 different traits shown in a little different rubric here. But what I'd like to do at this point is give you a moment to just say a minute or so to think to yourself, what are your strengths and where do you have opportunities to grow when it comes to servant leadership? So I'll be quiet for about a minute and give you an opportunity to think about that, and then we'll ask a few people to share out what their thoughts are. Okay, let's take about 15 more seconds. Strengths and opportunities to grow. Okay, why don't we start with strengths? Who would like to share one of their strengths as a servant leader? Everyone has them. So who would like to share one of your strengths?
I would say one of my strengths is I'm a person of character.
Very good. Thanks, Heather.
I am a
Let's
character.
do 3 more. Let's see if we can get 3 more.
Mine would probably be mentoring, coaching others. That's what I do for a living. Love it.
Excellent. Thanks, Cheryl. 2 others?
I was going to say, do I have to pick one of these boxes? But gosh, at times I feel like I fill pieces and parts of all these boxes. And then at other times I don't do such a good job of that. So I had more opportunities to grow written down. But I'm probably a put people first person. I'm interested in what other people have to share and contribute, and I want to hear what's on their mind. So I don't know if that falls under people first or skilled communicator or.
That's okay. It can go either place, but it's a strength. So that's great. Okay, one more, and then we'll talk about opportunities to grow.
I would put myself more open-minded to collaborate. I always have to check myself to make sure that I get more ideas before I decide. Open-mindedness.
Okay, yeah. Got it. Excellent. That's great. Okay, all good strengths. And I'm sure there are many others in this group. So what are some opportunities to grow? Let's see if we can have 4 of those.
This is Lynn Telford.
Sorry, go ahead.
Okay, I was just going to say that one of my opportunities is that I'm an external processor. And so I tend to have my ideas coming out of my mouth, and I don't do a great job of pausing to listening to others, even though it's a really important value of mine, is to making sure that people are included and valued. I forget to pause and listen because my mind is working and it's coming out my mouth.
And I will tailgate Lynn here again, because I put down speak up more without being asked. I like to listen. I've trained myself to listen because I know that I can go in with ideas and actions and I can be a stronger personality than I really care to be. So I'm looking for people like Lynn who want to share, who want to give that information. So I tend to keep quiet maybe more than I should, just because I'm trying to take it all in.
Okay, great. 2 good examples. Let's get 2 more.
I feel like I have an opportunity to grow, and I'm dealing with this now, just coaching high school girls, is sometimes I don't give specific enough feedback because I'm almost too concerned about people first and emotion first. And now, but in order for people to really grow or want to meet expectations or do well, sometimes we need more specific feedback. And even if that means having harder conversations, specific feedback is appreciated. And I need to be better at giving specific feedback, even if it's hard.
Very good. Thanks for sharing that, Heather. One more?
Can I say both? The open-mindedness to get feedback can be both a strength and an opportunity to grow. Sometimes you're so open-minded and people give you so many ideas. I think if you don't know your goal and your mission, you're going to be totally flawed and you'll be all over the place. You don't know what to do. So it is something it's a strength to be open-minded. Yet on the other hand, I think we need to know it's an opportunity to grow, to make sure we know what we're doing.
Great. Thank you, Yoksim. Okay, let's wrap up with a couple more slides. Thinking about lifelong learning in leadership, and just as we all have strengths and we all have opportunities to grow as being servant leaders, and just as we all have our kind of default traits that we like to go to, and we have opportunities to grow in using the other traits, that reflection of being a servant leader is important in terms of the lifelong leadership aspect. And great leaders understand that there's not a one-size-fit-all type of approach. So they're always reflecting, learning, and evolving. And I think of myself in the career path that I mentioned earlier, how I evolved and grew and changed in each of the positions that I was in. And always, when I took the next position, always wanted something that would give me an opportunity to learn and an opportunity to think about something that was different. And you see this often in PTA leadership where people are kind of thrust into positions that maybe they aren't fully prepared for, or they feel like they are kind of learning by the seat of their pants. That happens a whole lot in PTA. Trying to help mentor those folks and bring them along and build a succession plan where you have people that are kind of in training for different positions before they move into those positions can help an awful lot. And especially when you think about just the ladder that's available at PTA, where you can work on specific tasks, and then you may work on a committee, and then you may chair a committee, and then you might become an officer of or a board member of whichever level, and then you may become the leader, the president, or the president-elect. So we have just a natural pathway to leadership in PTA, and it's important to think about how to apply aspects of servant leadership and lifelong learning as you kind of progress through those various steps. So be thinking about how you can grow leaders, how you can kind of identify them early and get them into positions where they can succeed and stretch and hopefully not beyond their capabilities, but something that they're ready for, but that they will learn from. Lots and lots of leadership tools for PTA. This is one of the great aspects of being connected to a national PTA structure, is that there are all sorts of various resources that you can use, and most of those are on pta.org. You've got a number of websites here. Of course, you can take a picture with your cell phone or whatever to get all of these websites. You can subscribe to various newsletters and blogs that can help. We have at national, like I'm getting ready this week to do calls with the state treasurers. So, we can provide some consistent training and support across all of the state treasurers. There are similar calls for state presidents-elect, and again, trying to build those leadership cadres and strengthen the bench so that when it's time to go into the game, you're ready. So please feel free to get into any of these. These are all, part of your membership, and they're all free for you to use. And we'll wrap up with a quote. The role of a great leader is not to give greatness to human beings, but to help them extract the greatness they already have inside them. So thank you for the opportunity to share some aspects of leadership and to all think together about how to build on our strengths and become better leaders, and be happy to answer questions or talk through, aspects of leadership as you wish. But I appreciate the opportunity to present today.
Thank you so much. Are there questions? Please,
yes,
go ahead.
I have two questions.
Sure.
So open-mindedness, I'm always asking questions. One question would be, you mentioned there's no one-size-fits-all and there's no cookie cutter. So from your experience, don't you adjust your leadership depending on the situation and the context that you're in?
Yes, very much so. And great leaders do that. We probably all of us have led innumerable committees, task forces, small groups of people to get something done. And, as I mentioned earlier, folks kind of have a default setting. Like for me, my default setting is Democratic. And I really like to pull in everybody's ideas, and I like to kind of guide the group toward a decision to where the group makes the decision. But there are times when I step in with guiding questions to kind of not to determine what the outcome is going to be, but to get everyone focused on what they're going to have, what they have to decide in order to get that done. And we all know, very good people that are really, really brilliant, smart people that just kind of go off and off and off and off. And it's important to, adjust your style when you need to kind of pull them together. It's also, one of the things we haven't talked about, but it's so true in today's society. We've got so many, it seems, contentious issues all the time. It's like, and the contention is serious. It's like people don't, I'm 62 years old. There's been plenty of times in my life where, eras where things have been contentious. But it seems like we're in a unique period right now where we're so polarized that the contention just gets really personal. And so it's important as leaders to develop those conflict resolution skills and those skills to help people negotiate and figure out what the best outcome is, without getting into all of the contention and political stuff. And I don't mean Republican, Democratic political, that could be too, but just politics, local, state, national.
You really answered my second question, because I was going to ask about how to deal with conflicts, not just political, but general conflicts, because we have personalities that are so different. But I'd like to ask a third question, since you answered the second one I had in mind. You asked us about our strength and our areas of opportunity for growth. My question is that we all bias ourselves. So to ask us for self-awareness and reflection, to identify both our strengths and weaknesses, what are some of your best tools for making sure what you think about yourself is correct? Or do you ask people to say, how do you define it? But people are generally too pleasant and too nice to say anything negative about you.
That's such a good question, Yoksem. Something that I did in my career, about every 3 years, there's a tool, and I can't remember the name of it right now, but it's called a 360 assessment. There's an actual brand name for this thing. But the idea of a 360 assessment is that you choose people who are your bosses, people who are your peers, people who you supervise, and then people who are partnered with you, like outside of your organization. And this particular 360 assessment has a series of questions that it asks those people confidentially to rate you on as a leader. And I like to do that about every 3 years because, if you do it every year, things don't change that much. But about every 3 years, you can see patterns developing across the various aspects of the questions where, you may have shifted your approach because of whatever circumstances. And I think it's important to do those kinds of assessments. I think if you Google 360 assessments, 360 being all of the degrees in the circle, then, I think you'll be able to find a number of tools that will help you do that. But the important aspect of it is to get people who are supervising you, people who are your peers that you work with, and people who you supervise. And you can use the word supervise very broadly, like in PTA volunteer speak. if you're a committee chair, then you could have the state or local board or officers, which would be above you. You could have other committee chairs, and then you could have people that were on your committee. And that can give you some really valuable feedback.
All right. I am going to jump in here because I'm so grateful to have you. And I would love it if you'd be willing to put a way for people to reach out to you, whether it's a PTA address or however you best like to visit with people, so that people can reach out to you. In case Yoaxim would like to visit further as well. We have our next guest with us, so I want to shift to her as well. But gosh, I just really appreciate your joining us today, Bill. Thank you so much. And I will be sending a thank you to National PTA for reaching out to you and allowing you, I guess, to join us today. Zoom is much easier than a plane ticket, so that's wonderful. But
yeah,